I cannot create human beings, so I'm not going to say someone isn't good looking. For a split second, I was going to walk back. My expectations just shattered into millions and millions of pieces. I was just thinking, what do you do? How do you run? Let's take a picture. Okay, do I like? How are you guys doing? Welcome to my channel. If you're new on my channel, then you probably don't know me. My name is Chinyere. So today's video is going to be a very different one. I don't think I've done a story time on this channel. Maybe like my birth story. So today's video is basically just kissing you guys about how I met some boys, because it wasn't just one boy or man. Should I call them men? Okay. How I met some guys over the radio. A lot of these people that I met still stayed on for a long time in my life, you know, up until, you know, I just kind of cut them off, or they just dropped off by themselves. So I feel like this is going to be an interesting one. I think this should have happened around, let's say, 13-14 years ago. What happened was my last year in secondary school, I wrote JAMB. Now, if you're not Nigerian, JAMB is an exam you write when you're leaving secondary school, which is high school, to uni. And in my last year, I mean, my parents kind of rushed me, so I wrote the exam in my last year in secondary school, which didn't even make sense. But at the time, they wanted me to try it out just to see what my score was going to be like, and I didn't get to the cutoff point for the uni that I wanted to go into, for the uni I wanted to go in and the course that I chose, so I couldn't enter uni that year. So I was home, and let me tell you guys, I think that was a time in my life where I was depressed, borderline depressed, and legit I was tired of life, because it felt like I was failing at everything during that period. Like, I was doing almost nothing. I was just home, and then I started to read for exams when the exams are, you know, drawing near. And it was later on I started going to lessons, you know, just to brush up on what I knew. My mates were getting admission. Those of them whose parents could afford to send them to private schools got into private schools almost immediately after they left secondary school. One thing I turned to was music. I loved listening to music, and I remember I used to listen to the radio so often. Like, I knew all the radio shows on all the channels. So there was this show I used to listen to every night, I think around 1 a.m. It was on Rhythm 93.7 FM. I don't remember the name of the show, but the host was Shola Thompson. I don't know if he still does radio now, but that guy's voice, oh my god, his voice is dreamy. He had such a beautiful voice. I would just turn on my radio with my earpiece, and I would listen to this guy throughout the night, and they would play a lot of like R&B, and oh my god, it was so beautiful. I loved music so much. I think during the period that this show was on, he started doing like call-ins, and then I think text messages. So you send in messages about, you know, yourself, and if you want to meet somebody and all of that. And so you send in messages telling them who you are, how old you are, who you want to, no, I don't think you can say who you want to meet. I think you can say who you want to meet. I'm not even sure. But one night, like, I'd been listening to this radio show for the longest time. I don't know what happened. One night I decided to send a message, and then I was like, you know, let me just try, let's just see how it comes out. And so I sent a message. My name is Chinyere, this is how old I am. I don't remember. I just wish I remember if you could tell what kind of guy you want, or I can't remember, because that would just be odd, because the people that came along the way, which I'm going to gist you guys about, they didn't fit into the same spec. So I don't know if you could tell the kind of guy that you were looking for. But I sent the message and all of that, and when he read the message out, literally a few seconds after the message was read out, my phone was blowing up. Text messages, calls, there was no, you know, no video, anything. And I answered a lot of phone calls. I can just imagine guys just hanging on by the radio waiting for one girl to send, and they're like, oh, and then, you know, they're just like sharks. Like, after the radio show ended, I was still chatting with some of the guys that I had met on the radio show. But as time went on, you know, they were dropping one by one. Either I was not interested in this particular one, or just did not make sense, or wasn't talking like human being with sense, that kind of thing. So I started dropping them one after the other. So I was stuck with a few of them. So you just know them based on what they've told you over the phone. So we're constantly texting. And that period, let me tell you guys what happened. That period, I had a problem with my Celtel line. I don't know, a problem that benefited me anyway. Somehow it was Celtel then, I think, because the number I use right now is the number I've been using for years. So this particular number that I'm using now had an issue where I was sending messages and I wasn't being charged. I sent text messages for over a year without being charged. I was able to constantly chat, but then one of them, I started chatting with him, and then we're like, okay, let's meet up. And this was months after, you know, texting and all of that. But there was another guy, his name is Arthur. I remember his name so well. This guy, let me tell you guys, this guy, we chatted for a long time, and there was never a period where I heard anything like, oh, can I see you? Or I know he lived somewhere in the west, like maybe like I think he lived somewhere in Ibadan, Ogun State, or Ondo, one of those Yoruba states. And there was never a time where he said, oh, can we meet up? How do we see? Like, we just chatted like friends, like, what are you doing? Right now you're trying to get admission. Oh, what are you reading? What courses are you going for? So we'll just about school, life, family, through text messages and phone calls. And do you guys know that I talked to this guy for years? I think if not up to 3 years, because at some point we talked and then we lost communication. I don't know whose end that came from, but then we started talking again, and I would talk to this guy. We talked for so long. This guy was constantly sending me recharge cards and money. There was nothing like, oh, I want to see you, which I find very odd, because if you look at it, I feel like a lot of guys would always say, oh, I want to see you and all of that. We've been talking for so long, and even you on the other end will feel that, okay, you know, we've been talking for so long, there's no harm in seeing this person. But then there was one of them that I eventually got to meet and started dating, and he kind of looked similar to what he told me he looked like over the phone. But then somehow it was a funny relationship, because the age gap was, right now to me, is not a lot, but way back then it was a lot, because I was about 18 or 19 and he was in uni. Eventually I ended the relationship because for me there was a tribal issue way back then, because I don't know, I think maybe just the notion I had was that I would never be able to marry someone that is not Igbo. I don't know where I got that from. It wasn't like I ever heard my parents say anything like, oh, you can't get married to somebody that is not Igbo. I don't think I ever heard them say anything like that, but I just felt that there was no point going on with a relationship when it's time to get married, you can't get married to that person. So that period when it looked like he was coming closer and he was trying to take things a lot more seriously, I was like, you know what, nah, no. So I was like, no, you know what, no, let's just call this relationship quits. There was no reason. I was young, ignorant. I didn't give any concrete reason. And you know how someone that is way older wants to know, like, what is the problem? What happened? What's the problem? Why don't you want us to continue this thing? Like, we weren't having any issues. And I was just like, you know what, no. I didn't want to mention it because I knew he was going to try to convince me, and convincing me did not make sense, because it would probably maybe just pull me back into it. Then I just felt I would spend so many years with the same person, and then at the end of the day my parents are like, oh, you can't get married. That was just what I felt at that point in my life. And so that relationship ended. Now I continued talking to one of them for a long time, and let me tell you guys, this guy I was talking to, his voice, he had such a good voice. His voice was beautiful, that kind of radio voice that will soothe your ears. I just felt that, okay, this person will probably look as good. It's not like that all the time. I just felt like, okay, this person will probably look as good as his voice sounds. And so we just chatted a lot. Like, we talked a lot about a lot of things. There's always something to talk about, because I was in school. I was in maybe first or second year in uni at that point. I would just talk. Eventually, I think definitely over a year after, we decided to kind of see. I think I came back to Lagos and he was in Lagos or something. So we decided to now, see each other. Already over the phone, he had tried so hard to describe himself, height, looks, fair, and at some point in my life I was drawn to fair guys. Like, I liked fair guys, but it's funny how I ended up marrying my love, and he's not fair. He's dark, like dark. So he had told me he was fair, so I was like, okay, you know, fair guys. I don't know if he ever described himself as handsome. I can't see. We decided to meet up somewhere, an eatery, Mr. Biggs, and I got to the front of it and I called. I'm like, okay, where are you? He said he's inside. You know how, you know, the excitement, seeing someone, excitement mixed with nervousness, seeing someone that you haven't seen before, you've talked to over the phone, and you've imagined in your head that this person is looks a certain way. I cannot create human beings, so I'm not going to say someone isn't good looking. Like, when you see someone, you know if you want to be with that person before you now start talking to that person and all of that. But in this case, it was the reverse. You talk to the person first, you chat, and then you guys kind of become friends over the phone, and then you now have to see the person. I'm telling you guys that for a split second, I was going to walk back. I actually called him from the front of the eatery. I didn't go in yet. I called from the front because I wanted to see who was going to pick up the phone first. I wanted to know what to expect at least. So the truth is that from the glass, I couldn't really tell, but I knew where he was sitting. I saw the person pick up the phone, so I decided to just enter. And when I got in, just my expectations just fell to the ground, shattered into millions and millions of pieces. But I couldn't go back. I couldn't turn back. So I went, sat down, you know, we hugged, said, oh, so is this you? I really, honestly, I can't even remember what his reaction was like looking at me, because I was so engrossed in the fact that this guy did not look like he described, or maybe I'm the one that even described him by myself. Maybe he didn't even tell me how he looked. I know he said he was fair, and he was indeed fair, but oh my god, no. The food I was even eating did not enter well. I wasn't hearing anything. I was just thinking, what do you do? How do you run? Thank God you didn't invite him to your house, because then he will know your house, and then you won't be able to avoid him, because he can decide to just come to your gate one day now and say, I came to see Chinyere. So I was thankful for the fact that I didn't meet him in a place where he knew that I lived, and we met in an open place. And so somehow I felt like, out of sympathy, I had to still kind of keep up with this person, or still like keep up with this thing. So it wasn't exactly like a relationship. It was more like, okay, I've met you now and I'm trying to ask you to be my girlfriend. Will you be my girlfriend? That kind of thing. So we just, you know, we're just chatting, and then after the whole thing, I left and he left. And then he called me again like the next week. I was like, oh, can we, you know, meet up for to go to the movies? Then it was Ozone. I don't even know if Ozone still exists. Then it was Ozone Cinemas. So we met up at Ozone, and the most embarrassing thing happened to me in Ozone. For the first time, I fell on an escalator, but thankfully the guy was like in front of me. He went to buy tickets. So climbing the escalator, I don't know, I think I wore a long dress or something, and I just toppled, and I was falling repeatedly. I didn't fall once, so I fell repeatedly, because I couldn't find my footing. I just kept on falling and falling. So we went to the movies, but let me tell you guys, every step of the way, every time I was sitting down with this guy, it just seemed like it was suffering, like I was just punishing myself. That was exactly what it was like. And the movie was over, because you know, it's a different thing when you're with somebody and the person is your friend, but then when it comes to a point where you guys have talked for so long, and you in your mind, you never really started dating until, you never planned to start dating until you see each other. And at this point, it wasn't like he was seeking my approval, like, oh, do I look good enough for you? It was more like he felt, okay, since you see me now, then we're good. You know, I don't need to ask you if I'm good enough or if I look as good as you thought I looked. So it just felt like it was a go ahead for him. So I feel like me being there, to him, I was his girlfriend, and to me, I was like, no, not your girlfriend, please. Please, let's respect ourselves. We're just friends. So it was on our way like back home from the movies. That was when I knew that this guy was seriously thinking I'm his girlfriend, because he was like, oh, and then, you know, he trying to touch me and all of that. I'm like, no, like, no, I don't think it's something, I don't think it's appropriate for us to do this. And the looks just did not, I could not, you know how every day I was thinking, can I actually do this? It became a prayer point. It became a problem, because at some point I was like, you know how someone ticks all your boxes, and then it's like, oh, he's nice. And I mean, this was all my boxes of me when I was 18 or 19. That's a long time ago. So then it was like, okay, he's, you know, I like him, blah blah blah, but then how does he look like? Can I deal with it? And I remember sometimes I'll just be thinking like, can the good things, can his good characters cancel out for the way he looks? Like, I was always very wary of commitment. When I see that someone is getting too close and I know that there's something that I'm having second thoughts about, I just push you away. I just give you cap. I just give you warning ahead of time that no, let us not bother, because it's gonna end in premium tears. But it just did not work, and so we never made headway. It was always about, no, I'm not ready, no, I don't want to have a boyfriend, no, let's just be friends. It was always, let's just be friends, and that was how it was. And we kept on talking until I met my, not until I met my husband, but until I kind of reconnected with my husband, because all through that period I probably met my husband along the line during those years, but then we lost contact, like I've mentioned before, and then we started talking again later on. So during that period I started hooked up with my husband again. He was still there and he was still on about just us dating, and I was like, no, like I cannot date you. So it was kind of easy to let go of him when I met my husband, not when I met my husband, but when I kind of reconnected with my husband again. So it was completely easy to push him away, because my husband then, I remember, he would always ask me, who is this person calling you? Why is he calling you? Why is he always sending you text messages? And it became a problem, because sometimes we'll quarrel about it. So I just told him, I'm like, you know what, we're not dating, I don't want to date you, so let's just like stop talking to each other. And somehow I was just able to push him away until he just stopped calling me, because I haven't changed my number, so I use the same number. Anybody that has known me in the last 10 years or more, I still use the same number. So it wasn't like I changed number or anything. I just kind of pushed him away to the point that he was like, okay, there's no point talking to her. And I think it got to a point that I had to tell him, okay, I'm engaged, please stop calling me, stop talking to me. That was how that happened. And my husband successfully was able to make me just detach completely. I didn't mind detaching at this point, because I feel like there was something that still made me keep talking to him, maybe because I wasn't seeing anybody. So I was like, okay, let's just keep talking and all of that, even though I knew it wasn't going to get anywhere. But once my husband came into the picture, it was easier for me to just let go of this guy. And then that was how I cut off ties with him, because I never used to go out, so meeting people when I go out was almost impossible. The only times I went out was when I used to go to lesson, and it was on my way to lesson that I even met my husband. So you will never even catch me outside, first of all, to even say I want to see boys safe to date. So that's it. That's my story time. Hope you guys enjoyed listening to it. Have you met somebody before that you just feel you couldn't date or get married to because of the way the person looks? Because I know, at least when I was in school, then people would always say, oh, you don't marry somebody based on how they look. And way back, I remember just thinking to myself, like, I want someone that is fine on the inside and on the outside. I want, like, why can't I get that? Because people always made it look as if you can't find somebody that is handsome and is also of good character. That was how it looked like then. So when I met this person, it made me feel like, okay, maybe this is actually it. Maybe you can't get it all around, maybe you can't get it both ways. So let me know, have you ever met someone that you felt has like such a great character but didn't look like your spec, didn't look like someone you wanted, and did you eventually settle? And if you eventually settled, how did that turn out for you? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you in my next video. Bye.